but my name's Gemma Cooper. I'm from Nielsen, and for those of you who don't know who Nielsen are, then I'm the wrong person to ask that question to. Nielsen, that was a joke, by the way, you can all laugh. Excellent. Nielsen is the world's largest market research company, and what we do is we collect consumer data on what people buy and on what people watch. So the presentation I'm going to take you through today is all about how consumer diets are changing, and what you will see in this presentation is a blend of that data we have at Nielsen. So you'll see some data from the supermarket tills, you'll see some data that our household panelists have scanned, and you'll also see some information about the kind of media that they watch when they're at home. So I don't know about you, but when I think of the word diet, there's a few things that come to my mind. It's living a healthier lifestyle, taking a look at what the latest health trend is, and generally just being healthier in what I eat and drink. So what I thought it would be quite interesting to take a look at is actually what is the definition of the word healthy, as the Oxford English Dictionary says. And as you can see there, it's being in a good physical or mental condition. And there's 4 parts that make that up. Either not being diseased, indicating or promoting good health to others around you, having a normal, natural and desirable, or having a satisfactory size or amount. Now, I'm sure all of you in this room, when you look up there, there's some of those statements that will mean more to you about what healthy is and what healthy isn't. So take a look at those 4 parts there, and I want you to have a think about which of those defines healthy to you today. And if it's the first one, we're going to do a little bit of an audience participation to make sure you're all awake after lunch. So if you believe that the definition of healthy, the most important definition of healthy, is of a part of the body not being diseased, please raise your hand. So there's a few people in the room that believe that is what healthy means to them. Raise your hand if for the second point of indicating or promoting good health is the definition of healthy to you. A few more people, excellent. Number 3, normal, natural and desirable. Any of you believe that that is what defines healthy? And then finally, of a very satisfactory size or amount is what healthy means. Excellent. And then show of hands if any of you in the room actually don't believe that any of those things define healthy to you. So you can see it's really difficult when we define health and when we define diet and what does that actually mean. And that's why health today, as we stand here, takes on many forms in the world. And you can see a lot of buzzwords we hear in our world of food and drink. The big ones there, vegan, free from, fad diets of keto. A reducitarian, did I hear? A reducitarian is where you choose not to eat meat for your choice, not that you believe that it's harmful to animals. It's just an American term for those that want to be a vegetarian when they decide they want to be for their own choice. So you can see that it means many things to people today, and that's where it becomes really difficult to pin down how you look at a consumer diet and how that changes. And when we asked our household panelists, when you're grocery shopping, do you look for healthy products? Over half of our shoppers on our panel of 15,000 people strongly agree that it's important for them to seek out healthy products when they're in the supermarket. You can start to think that as we've just seen in the room today, being healthy means very many different things. So how do you understand what that means to a consumer? Health was once all about organic. So for the last sort of 5 and 6 years in our world, a lot of people tell us they buy organic products because they believe it's healthy for them and that it's doing their bit for the environment. So the size of the organic industry of food and drink is about 1.5 billion. And it's grown at 3.2% over the last 3 years, which is above that of inflation and is above that of the overall food and drink sector. But it does only make up a small portion of those overall supermarket sales. What's really interesting is that free from food and drink, that's free from gluten, wheat, dairy, or those that have those multiple claims, it's actually bigger than free from now. It's worth £1.75 billion. And that growth number you see there of 510 million is bigger than the whole of the Kellogg's brand that you see in the supermarkets. It's had phenomenal growth over the last few years and has become a category that's generated 11% of overall food and drink growth that's incremental. So we start to see a lot of the manufacturers that we work with and the retailers we work with really wanting to tap into this because they see it as a profitable part for their business. So, as we can see, we believe that the free-from category is going to continue to grow. That's not going to go away. So what I thought we could do is try and ground how big that category is in terms of other food and drink categories that we might buy when we're in the supermarket. So, again, a bit more audience participation, please, if we can. Do you think the size of the total free-from food and drink category is higher or lower than the size of all the colas you can buy in the supermarket? Hands up if you think it's higher. So the free-from category is higher than the total colas category in the supermarket. A few of you. So I believe the majority of the room think it's lower, correct? Free-from is actually bigger than all colas that are sold in the supermarkets. It's worth 1.75 billion versus the 1.59, so it's massive. If we think about hot beverages, so all of your teas, coffees, hot chocolates, all of that, do you think free-from is higher? Put your hand up if you think free-from is bigger than the hot beverage sector. Not that many of you. Oh, a few more. So hands up if you think that the hot beverages sector is lower than free-from. Just about. It's almost a trick question there. Free-from and hot beverages are similar size in the supermarket. And finally, poultry. So one that's probably a little bit closer to your hearts than here. All of the poultry you can buy in the supermarkets is free-from higher or lower than all poultry that's sold in supermarkets. Hands up if you think free-from is worth more than all poultry sold in supermarkets. So there's probably about 80% of you that think poultry sales is bigger than free-from. No, free-from is bigger than all poultry that is sold in supermarkets. So it's huge, right? And that's why we don't think that the growth is going to slow. So what you can see here, the growth over the last few years is huge, and a lot of it we're going to come on is down to gluten-free, but a lot of noise in the market is around these dairy alternatives and the dairy sector growing. And what we believe is if you take the average growth rate over the last 3 years of free-from, we think that free-from in the next 2 years is going to be worth around about £2.4 billion. Again, thinking about those categories in the supermarkets because they're just numbers, that will be bigger than all crisps, snacks and nuts that are for sale at the moment in supermarkets. So it's going to be huge. Now, that is an estimate. It could be stunted or it could accelerate, and some of those key things are Brexit, import duties and implications. It could make these products which are traditionally more expensive, more expensive. One side of the pond argues that this will mean that the products become too expensive for people to buy, therefore the category growth will slow. Others argue that actually people will continue to buy this because they have a need for it, therefore the category will grow even more as prices have risen. And we also need to think about our millennials, so our younger, under 34 population. They're the people that we see who are really struggling with disposable income and really struggling to spend more on what they want. Therefore, they are the kind of the future that will come through here, so they can affect that. But we don't think it's going to slow. And as I was saying to you before, the way that free-from is defined in our world in food and drink is through dairy-free products, gluten-free products, wheat-free, and multiple claim. Now, they are all mutually exclusive, and your multiple claims are those that, say as the obvious, claim more than one of those. Gluten-free makes up about 60% of the free-from food and drink market, and it's grown about 323 million. So it's grown a lot over the last few years, but a lot of noise in this market is coming through from dairy-free. In terms of percentage growth, it's nearly 50% growth over the last 3 years. It's only 10% of the category, but this is where we're starting to see a lot of interest in innovation into that sector. We're starting to see retailers backing it because it's now driving growth back into what were declining categories of yogurt, cheese, milk. So again, it's thinking about how the effect of this growth is going to determine the success of this category. So it's no surprise then when we look at what categories make that up, 2 out of the top 3 categories are gluten-free. And number 1 and 2 are gluten-free baked beans and gluten-free sausages. Now, when we tell this to retailers, they don't think that baked beans is a category that's gluten-free, and they don't think that sausages are. But when you start to unpick what's under that, Heinz beans from their website, they're gluten-free. Hex sausages, a big player in the sausage market, and a lot of the own label sausages are gluten-free. And what we started to see with these brands was they've always been gluten-free, but when the rise of free from and the trends around not eating that, they flipped it on its head and they jumped on this trend. Hex sausages just moved the gluten-free claim from the back of the pack to the front of the pack and suddenly became one of the fastest selling sausage brands. So what we start to see there is that retailers don't actually believe that they are truly free from categories, but they do understand that that's where a lot of the growth is. But dairy-free milk's the interesting one, right? That's definitely one that's created a lot of noise in our market, and being at certain events like this is creating a lot of noise for you guys, and we don't think that that's going to go away. And the reason being that when we asked our households, why do you, if you buy a free-from product, why is it you buy it? It's obviously no-brainer that it's because people have an intolerance, right? They can't eat the gluten, the wheat, the dairy. But we see a huge rise in the number of people that just like the taste of it, and they're not actually intolerant. So they've either A, by accident, picked up the gluten-free alternative and enjoyed it at home, or B, decided they wanted to know what all the fuss was about and how to go at buying it and have actually enjoyed the taste of it. So this is where we start to see a rise in the number of households who are buying free from, up to around about 41%. And again, we think when we refresh this data at the end of this year, it's going to rise even more as people are starting to see it in social media, hear it on the news, and are willing to try these products to see what it's all about. And retailers are also giving it a lot more space. So what you can see there on the left are from our brand bank partners. So they collect essentially all the images and all of the information on all of the products that are in the supermarket. And what you can see is that retailers over time are giving more space and there are more products available in store. And there's a few images there on the right from some of the big retailers, and they've expanded their space for these products. Now their supermarkets haven't got any bigger to accommodate this, so there have been non-free-from options that have actually lost space due to these. So what I thought we could take a quick look at in the next 3 slides is what are retailers doing? So what are our supermarkets doing in order to generate some of the noise behind this trend? So when we look at our big 4 supermarkets, so our Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda's and Morrison's, they generate about 60% of the cash in all food and drink. They generate just over 70% of all the cash that's made from free-from, so they massively overtrade in that. What we start to see is Sainsbury's, for example, they've done a really good job of innovating in their own label free-from range, giving it a fixed bay, a fixed end, and making sure that some of those heavily branded products are in amongst their non-dairy options. So you can go and choose your free-from cheese that's free-from branded cheddar cheese that's next to the own label non-free-from. So you can start to see that what they're trying to do is encourage shoppers to pick these up as and when they are moving down those aisles they might not have done before. And Morrison's is a really interesting one. So Morrison's has just launched 100 stores in the UK where they're trialling a new free-from experience. So if you imagine their market street, if you've ever shopped at a Morrison's, it's got its fresh, it's ambient and it's frozen. What they're trying to do now is implement this with the free-from. So I took myself to the Morrison's in Lincoln as it was one of the stores that was doing this. I just want to take you through a couple of pictures and my journey to that aisle and what the thoughts I have. So when I went into the supermarket, I wondered, where is the free-from section? I looked up and I saw this navigation. Health and well-being come this way, and I thought there is no way that Morrison's can be saying that free-from is health and well-being, and they weren't. What they had was a bit like a Holland and Barrett end of till, lots of those gummy bears and sweets and protein bars. But right next to it was the free-from ambient aisle. So you can see there was everything you can imagine down there. So baking ingredients, tortilla chips, down to beans, everything was down there. So it had a big ambient section, along with wishing you were free from Christmas. So really talking to that consumer about free from debt, I think is what I'd like to see. And then as you can see, as you move down the aisle on the left, you've got the chilled section. So you've got your milks, your cheeses, your ready meals down into the frozen section. So you start to see there, they've got a bay dedicated to milk. You've got cheese and yogurts in the next, chilled meals, and then you've got frozen pizza. So it's kind of a view of the whole aisle. So if you're a free-from shopper, that's great because you haven't got to walk around the store, you've got everything you need in one place. If you're not a free-from shopper, that happens to be next to some staple products of non-free-from yogurt, so you're probably going to be travelling down that aisle anyway. But the biggest thing for me that really shocked me was the seasonal aisle. And what you start to see here is this aisle, used to work in confectionery and soft drinks, this was the aisle you want to be on when it's Christmas time, because this is the one that generates the most traffic for people in store, and there's always fights on how you get more space there. And what I found really fascinating was there was a whole bay dedicated to free-from indulgent products on the seasonal aisle, which would have taken space from things like chocolate, alcohol, and non-free-from snacks. So if this works in the Morrison's test stores, it will be rolled out to all of them, and thinking about the implications that might have on other retailers' floor plans. So in-store execution is key. A lot of people find out about free-from in-store. You know, 50% of it find out about free-from in-store. 58% of people buy that product from the main aisle. So by that we mean they go to the cheese aisle, they see the dairy-free option, and there's more people moving down that free-from aisle. So we see a 2% increase in the amount of people that are having a journey down those dedicated free-from aisles than have done before. But online is a preferred place. So we start to see when we ask people, hang on a minute, you know, more of our free-from shoppers like to shop online. And when we ask them, why do you like to shop online versus in-store? Well, as a free-from shopper, they can see the new products a lot easier. The range is better because if you think about it, you've got to, as a supermarket, you can't have every single product in there. You've got to have a certain amount. They can see all of those products and they can buy bigger packs. But the big areas that need to be improved, and this is something which has tripped a few people up, is if you order gluten-free bread and there is none in that store, there is no substitute for you, so you don't get your bread. Converse to that, some people, if they order gluten-free bread, are getting non-gluten-free bread. So there's a little bit of a frustration, and you know, probably over time, retailers will improve this. Discounters, Aldi and Lidl, they're people we haven't really spoken about. They don't do free-from that well at the moment. Again, if they can tap into that, we'll start to see a little bit more growth come through in those numbers. But when we ask shoppers where they like to shop, they actually say to us, you know, that's the data, claims versus reality, right? We actually like to shop in M&S and Waitrose, it's a lot nicer. But if somebody asked me where I'd like to shop, I'd probably say M&S and Waitrose, when really I like to shop at an Aldi. So we start to see a lot more of those free-from shoppers like to shop in those premium supermarkets. So if M&S and Waitrose, again, can tap into this free-from trend of the fad diet that's moving through, we can start to see those numbers rise. So I'm just going to finish off by talking to you about who is that shopper? So who is this mysterious free-from shopper and what do they do? Well, the core free-from shoppers, so the main people who buy these free-from products, tend to be in a household of around 2 people. They're aged 45 to 64. They're a little bit more affluent than others. They live in London and central UK. So a little bit of a snapshot for you. To flip that around, the people who buy dairy-free products are younger millennials living in the south. So we know that people buy free-from because they need to, but a lot of those people around the dairy alternatives, they tend to be these younger shoppers tapping into those trends. And these are the behaviours they show. So a little bit more health conscious than the average population. They're concerned for the environment. They prefer vouchers and loyalty cards, which I think is relatively interesting because a free-from, can you think about how a retailer would tap into that with specific free-from vouchers and coupons? They're more likely to participate in events, so we see a lot of free-from people participate more in Christmas and Easter than the average person, so not too sure where that lies. And they're more likely to buy brands, so they are looking for those branded offerings, which is kind of where free-from stems from, right? There's a lot of brands in there. And the media they consume, so they prefer to catch up and film stream more than the average shopper, and this one baffles me. They're more likely to watch the Bake Off than a non-free-from person. Maybe this was asked after Vegan Week at Bake Off, so maybe this increased it. But apparently they like to watch the Bake Off more than your average person. So it just gives you a little bit of a snapshot into what they do and who they are. And when we think about how big their basket is, so when they go to the supermarket, how big is their basket? Are they actually really that valuable to a retailer? Well, yes, their basket is worth about £16.85 every time they go to the supermarket. It's a little bit more expensive than your average person's basket. 80 pence more, probably down to the fact that free-from products are more. But then you start to see, hang on a minute, they go to the supermarket an awful lot of time. They go to the supermarket 5 times a week. You're probably thinking to yourself, that's actually quite a lot. But if you sit and think, most of you in this room probably visit a supermarket 5 times a week and do a little bit of shopping. But what I find really interesting here is when they've got their basket, at Nielsen we call shops in top-up shops and large shops. Now a top-up shop is around about 10 items in your basket, and your larger is 11 and plus. So free-from shoppers technically always have a larger basket, which to a retailer is really valuable because they're putting more products in and there's more chance to get them to increase the amount of products they're putting in. And every time they go to the supermarket, so of those 5 times a week they go to the supermarket, they're putting on average about 2 free-from products in their basket. So they're making that journey down that aisle an awful lot. And if you think about all of those new products that are coming in, that's more chance for them to try free-from alternatives of what are non-free-from in the main aisle. It's really interesting to just think about how a retailer sees those free-from shoppers and how valuable they are. But what's quite interesting is kind of the last 2 slides here is that we can look at our regular free-from households, and only 47% of those households have somebody living in it with an intolerance, which means that 53% of households don't have anybody living in them with an intolerance. So when we start to see the gap that can create, it's quite interesting to think about the impact that could have as more people are buying those free-from products and their diets are adapting to becoming, those free-from products are adapting into their diets to just become part and parcel of what they buy on their shopping list every week. But some of the key reasons why they buy it, so when we ask these households, we mentioned it back at the top there, more people are buying it because they like the taste and they've got an intolerance. So if you take those 2 bits away, 27% of people believe that free-from products are better for them. And when you look at what in their household, 17% of those people are on diets and 21% of them are diabetic. I'm not making any inferences as to what that means, but it just leads you to see where people are buying free-from because they think it's better for them. They also believe it's for animal welfare issues and it's for sustainability, which I'll leave you to mull over the sustainability of almonds and soybeans for all of these products, but it's interesting to see that a lot of people are buying these products not because they have an intolerance, but they believe they're doing something better for the environment that they live in. So I was asked to take a look at what we think the future of free-from would be. So we don't think the category is going to slow. It's here to stay. It's something that we're going to have to adapt to. The exponential growth or the plateauing of this category will depend on multiple factors, sort of Brexit and the amount of people that are now saying, you know, we are diagnosed as celiac. It's never going to go away. There's always going to be people with intolerances. So we can't ignore that. And then from a retailer standpoint, retailers see this category as beneficial to them because it generates more cash, it's more expensive. There's some schools of thought at the moment that as the free-from products gain more of that space on the supermarket shelves, some retailers are saying, hey, Mr. Free-from manufacturer or Mrs. Free-from manufacturer, you're telling me to charge £1 more for your soya-based yogurt than the non-soya-based yogurt. I don't want to do that. I want to charge the same. So what's happening is we're starting to see price switches in that. And what that is then meaning is 2 things. The margin for these free-from retailers is going to shrink and they're potentially not going to be as profitable. And it will open the door for more people to buy into those products. So thinking at Brexit, could it make those products more expensive? Could it make them cheaper? What effects is that going to have on the demographics we see? And finally, from a shopper point, we've mentioned that before, there are always going to be people who need to have free-from products. And we know that people are very willing to tap into those latest trends, so the shopper dynamic is still going to stay. But what underpins all of this here is sustainability. And when we kind of dig into the boring Excel spreadsheet of all these questions, right, everything comes back to these free-from shoppers on sustainability. The war on plastics is huge. Iceland and the palm oil ad. sustainability, sustainable farming, they want local. If you start to think about how that could affect the category of free from, the sustainable farming of almonds, for almonds milk, soybeans, for soy yogurt, animal welfare issues, it's going to be very easy for this group of people that just buy these products because they believe that it's animal welfare and sustainability to just shift to the next trend around plastics, around palm oil, and what that could mean. So the consumer diet is changing, but it's very much driven by what's in the news today. And interestingly, we were kind of looking at what that could mean with the war on plastics, right? I know we're talking about diets, but just to set the scene. A lot of innovation we see today, so smart fridges, for example, they're not new. They've been around for a really long time. They've been around since the 90s. The reason that they're coming to the forefront of people's discussions is because there's a consumer pull for them. And this is exactly what we think will happen with free from. As soon as that consumer pull comes for sustainability, it comes at the forefront of people's conversations. This could affect the way that the free from market works, and the consumer diet will just shift to whatever the next fad is. Thank you very much.